Hello everyone, welcome back. In this session, we will see how to check the type of an object in Python. So in this session, we will use some of the methods which will help us to achieve this goal. Without wasting any time, let's get started. So the first function is type function. This function is used to get the type of an object. Okay, so how it is used to get the type of an object? Let's see some example. So the first example is var equals to 10, and then in the type function I'm passing this var as a parameter, and then this whole thing is passed inside the print function. So what output we will get? We will get the output as class comma integer. Now in Python we know that Python accepts everything in the form of object. Okay, so when I say var equals to 10, this var becomes an instance of the class integer, and that is why when I'm trying to print the type of variable var, I'm getting the output as this particular variable, or you can say var is an instance of the class integer. Okay, now let's see one another example. So here what we are doing, we have written var equals to 10.29, and then when I'm trying to print the type of this variable, I'm getting the output as class float, because 10.29 belongs to float class. Similarly, if I write var equals to, this is a Python learning session. Now when I check the type of this particular variable, I'll get the output as class str. This object var is an instance of the string class. Now let's try this in PyCharm. So here what we will do, we'll say var equals to 10, and then I'll try print type and pass this variable var as a parameter. Now when I run this code, we are getting the response as class integer. Similarly, if I change this variable value and make it 10.20, now again run this code, so we are getting the response as class float. Similarly, if I change it to some string value, let's say this is a Python learning session. Okay, now when I again run this code, we are getting the response as class string. Okay, so this is how we can use the type function to get the type of an object. Now the next function is the, or you can say method, is the isinstance method. Now again this method is also used to check the type of an object, but the difference is the output of this particular method is boolean, that is either true or false. Now let's see some example here. So the first example is var equals to, this is a Python session, and then inside isinstance method we are passing two parameters. So first parameter is the variable var, and then the second parameter is the class. So what this method does, it will check that this particular variable var is an object of the string class or not. If it is, then the response will be true, otherwise it will be false. Now the next example is var equals to 10. Again, isinstance method is checking that this variable var is an object of the class integer. If it is, then we will get the response as true. Okay. Similarly, var equals to 10.20, and now here what I am doing, I am checking that whether this variable var is an instance of the class integer or not. So this does not belongs to the integer class, because this is a float value. It belongs to the float class, and that is why I am getting the response as false. Now let's try it in PyCharm. So instead of this type, what I'll write here is instance, and then I'll say str. So when I run this code, I'm getting the response as true, because this variable var is a instance of the string class. Similarly, if I change it to integer, Now let's say if I define here var equals to 10, and then instead of string I write here integer. Now again run this code, we are getting response as true. Why? Because this variable var is an instance of the integer class. Similarly, if I make it 10.29 and instead of string integer, if I make it float, so we will get the response as true. Okay, because this variable 10.29 belongs to the float class. But if I write here integer, what will happen? So when I again run this code, we are getting response as false. Why? Because this 10.29 is stored inside the variable var, and this variable is an instance of the float class, not the integer class. So this is how we can use the isinstance method to check the type of an object. Now the third method is the issubclass method. So this issubclass method is basically used in the object-oriented programming, but here some of the inbuilt classes in Python are again subclass of the other inbuilt classes in Python. That is why I have used this method also here. So now what this method does, it just returns true if the class is a subclass of the given class. Okay, otherwise it will return false. For example, issubclass method again takes two parameters. The first parameter says the subclass name and the second parameter says the class name. Okay, so here in my example what I am doing is issubclass method is taking two parameters. First one is the subclass, which is the float class, and then second one is the integer class, which is the main class. So what I am trying to do here is I am trying to check whether this float class is a subclass of the integer class or not. So it is not, and that is why the response is false. Again, the second example is subclass bool comma integer. Now what I am trying to check here, that boolean is a subclass of the integer class or not. So it is, that is why the response is true. Now let's check here. So what I'll do, I'll just remove everything here, and then I'll say print is subclass, and right here float comma integer. Now let's run this. So we are getting the response as false. Similarly, instead of float, if I make it bool, now again run the code, so we are getting response as true. Why? Because boolean is a subclass of the integer class. So this is how the issubclass method works. That's all for this session. Thank you.